buttons comes to Mama. Alrighties. There we go. Ha. Think we're good. Not sure if we're good. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. I hope I clicked the wrong button. The right button. Karen, you're there. I must have done okay. I am so sorry I got this up so late in the day. I will tell you why in just a minute. Okay, he's passing. He's passing on a hug. Happy Friday night, everybody. It is great to see you. It's great to be back. I was teaching today, and I was on such a tailspin. It was a tailspin situation getting out of the door this morning because I was teaching for the entire day, and I just got back like an hour ago. But luckily, I knew what we were going to do tonight. I knew what we were setting up for because our mutual friend, Crystal Ross, you know I have been talking about her book, her upcoming book, for about a year and a half, right? Hopefully everything is okay. My screen looks really weird. There we go. Okay, we're catching up now. We've been talking about her upcoming book for some time, and it's out. It is here. It is no longer upcoming. It is coming. It, in fact, came in the mail. It is right here, and it looks like this. Now, you will recognize Crystal's work from our Facebook page, which is Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club. She is just, she is such an iconic person to me. Her work is so classic, so clean, so streamlined, so contemporary, but yet so historic. I don't know how she does it. It's magic. But you know, she's been on here. She's been here with us and watching shows and in the Facebook group for well, since the beginning, I think. You know, and I really regard Crystal as rug hooking royalty because she comes from the Shettycomp line. I think her grandmother or great grandmother wrote the book on the history of Shettycomp. So it's just so nice to see history repeating itself in the form of Crystal carrying the tradition of rug making right through that family tree and into our lives as well. And you know, Crystal has such a distinct style, and I mean, it's not like it's always the same. It's very distinctive, and that's exactly what you want when you work on a book project. You want people to look at the book and say, yeah, I like this style, right? But it's not just a style book, and it's not just a pattern book. We're going to talk about all of that in just a minute. Let me take a quick little sip of this. Karen, how's it going in Black Forest, Colorado? Did you end up getting that horrific snowstorm, blizzard, or what? Happy to see you. Happy cocktail night. I am drinking water tonight. I'm so tired because I was crazy enough, because of teaching the class, I was crazy enough to wake up at 4:15 because I had the thought in my head, I wonder, because I bought the really thick hoops, not the little stupid hoops, right, from Joann's, but the really thick hoops. And in the middle of the, well, 4, I woke up and I thought, oh my God, I wonder if my fabric pieces are going to fit into them or be too small because the hoops are so big, you know, how you have these thoughts at the most inopportune times. So I had to turn on the lights and come on down and check and take everything apart. Everything was packed and checked it, and they fit great. Yeah, so I'm a little bit tired tonight. I don't dare drink alcohol because I'll get all crazy, but I'm very happy that you all are having a nice drink. Cheryl, there you go with your red wine on Cape Cod. It is a windy night. Here, too, it was a windy day. Cheers, my dears. Judy, great to see you. You just got a notification for 30 minutes from now. Ooh, what? Oh no, I wonder why. I wonder why. I couldn't have put 7:30 in. Did I put 7:30 in? Oh, I just did it in such a hurry. Gosh, hopefully everybody comes to us sooner rather than later. Dang it. I can't change it now that we're live. I wonder if it's because I did it so late that there's like a minimum. Well, hopefully they all find our way to us. Yeah, when I looked up, I was like, gosh, we usually have a bigger party here on Fridays. It's me being stupid. Good morning in Australia, Gail. Happy coffee time to you. I hope you're not having a cocktail. I love you. I gotta say, I hope you're having a coffee. Good to see you in Australia this morning. Melanie, great to see you. Happy Friday. April, happy Friday. Happy cocktail time. Great to see you in Illinois. Joe, great to see you. So you did it. Did you end up logging on with your other account or did you make it work with this one? Great to see you. Joe was there in the class today. Big shout out if anybody's watching who was in class today. I was teaching at the UU Church, Unitarian Universalist Church, which is known as USH, Unitarian Society of Hartford. I was there today all afternoon until 4. We did hooking using these big hoops and a bunch of different projects. A few people did their sort of own design. It was a full class of buddies. It was fantastic. I think some of you might be watching. Joe, Susan, you might be watching. Evan, you might be watching. To anybody who's watching who was there, it was such a fun time for me too. It just reminded me how important it is to get out there and connect in person as well as here. This is great. This is great because we're in so many different places. I'm sorry to those of you logging on late if I put the wrong time in. Hi, my name is Deanna. Nice to meet you. I am so sorry. Welcome to Friday Night Cocktail Night. There we go. Joe, I was so happy to meet you too. Can't wait to see you again in a couple of weeks. Kaz, great to see you. Happy Cocktail Night. Barbara, happy Cocktail Night. Love that category. Playful Techniques, I know it, right? Well, she actually tags the book. The book is called Punch Needle Rug Hooking Handbook. Techniques and Playful Projects. And that is a perfect way to describe Crystal's style. It is very playful. It's very gallery too. Let's come back to that. There's so many things about her work that are so like dualities, right? It's like it's playful, but it's not juvenile. It's contemporary, but it feels historic. You know what I mean? She walks this fine line in her design. We'll talk about design tonight as we look at some of these projects. Linda B, cheers, my dears from Jersey. Great to see you. Diane, great to see you. Cheers, my dears in Canada. I got to take a sip. Crystal, Kirsten, great to see you. The time was set for 7:30. Oh, snap. All right. Some buddies are going to be upset with me, huh? Oh, Ryan, great to see you. Happy Friday from warm North Texas. Seltzer and Vinyl Records. Peace and love to you, too. It's great to see you. Did you finish your collage stuff? Susan, great to see you. You made it back. Susan was in the class today doing such great work and showing some of the beautiful pieces that you've done. And it's so fun for other people to see work. You know, we were all doing our beginner work and I showed my stuff, but it's great to see work from someone else because it also drives home the point that it is possible. Doing like really elevated work is possible, right? It's just when you start your first piece, everything is a bit of a struggle. But man, people did remarkably well. I couldn't believe it. I'll tell you a little bit about it in a second. Colleen, welcome home. Welcome back. Cheers, my dears in Maryland. Classic Clover Club cocktail. What? Oh, that sounds great. I don't know that one. Great to see you, Marty. Great to see you in Hoosick Falls. We have to make our date to look at those barn quilts. We have to make our date. Great to see you. Catherine, great to see. No, I set the time wrong, Catherine. You are perfect. Thunder and lightning, very frightening. I hope things are good there. I hope you keep the power. Happy Friday. Great to see you. Rita, hello, my love. Great to see you. Happy Friday. And Crystal logged on. I put the wrong time, Crystal, but everybody's making their way here. Hello to Velma as well. I hope that little sweetheart is doing well, and she must be proud of Mama for sure. Okay, well, hey, great to see everybody. I'll keep an eye on the thread as we go along. Sorry about that snafu. That is so classic, isn't it? That's so classic. So, Crystal has written a classic book, a Clover cocktail of a book right here. Crystal, this is just, and I was privileged enough to be able to look at it before it came out. So I knew that it was going to be a grand book. But honest to God, in person and in my hand, it even exceeds expectation. Sharon, great to see you. Celebrating picking up a big box of wool at an estate sale. Well, happy to see someone else from Hoosick Falls. Oh, you know her parents. Okay, so we've got at least a date for the three of us, right? If I come to Hoosick Falls and we take pictures of all those barn quilts for the fall issue of Magpie Times, should we plan that? Crystal, this really did exceed my expectations. This is CT Publishing, and CT Publishing, I think, hitherto, like in past years, has been thought of as mostly a quilt publisher. And they are stretching a little bit now, and I'm really glad that they decided to stretch with the rug book. And I'm really happy that it was your rug book because it's a really good fit for them. And when you first told me that you were working on a book with them, I thought that's a really good match, right? Sometimes, matching a publisher to an author isn't the easiest thing in the world. Nothing to do with personalities, just having to do with the reach of the publishing house, and what their strengths are in terms of getting a book in front of people. CT Publishing is one of the best and most active, most sort of widespread presence of craft publisher, but they are really specifically fiber. So this is a great crossover book for people who don't know anything about rug making or punch needle, but are fiber people in their hearts and would like to learn more. So, I mean, this is just a gorgeous, really high quality book. It looks like this. I put the link to Crystal's book in the description of our video for tonight, so you can find it there, and you will want it in the back. So this is a nice big book loaded with projects. I want to look at some of these projects together and some of the additional and supporting information that's in this book, so you know what's in it. And whether you need it. I mean, I think you do need it. I think you do need it, not just to support each other, but because this is a really, really comprehensive book that combines beautiful patterns that are great for beginners and people who've been hooking forever and just love crystal style, but also techniques and very sort of no nonsense, clearly put to the point, well illustrated techniques. So it's a great balance. Some books for me are not because this is appealing to a beginner, right? Like these kinds of designs, beginners can't attempt this. So if you have a book that has these kinds of designs that would appeal to people who are just starting out, you have to be sure that you put enough technical how-to content in there. And this book is very strong in that area. So the first half of the book, I'll show you. And I'm not going to show you all of it again because I hope that you will support Crystal and support our craft and purchase new books like this. They hardly ever appear. And when they do, they are as rare as hen's teeth to find one as good as this, honestly. And I love Crystal has a sort of look to her photographs, right? You're always showing photographs that we can't quite see you. And I did have a feel for what you look like, right? Because we know each other, but we've never met in person. And there's a few photos like this where I thought, okay, there she is. So it was great to see your face too. But I love the artistic way that you photograph your work. It really is. It's so specific. It's very recognizable. It's very clever. It's modest. It's fun. It's got humor and whimsy. I mean, it's just absolutely wonderful. So one of the things that I love about the beginning of this book, Crystal has an introduction in here, beautifully illustrated with photographs, both how-to photographs, vignettes of the rugs, and then pictures of the rugs in the second half of the book when we're looking at the different patterns. Crystal, I love how you have done so much with history and Canadian rug making history. And I'm not surprised given your family tree. But I love how you put excerpts, like you put this excerpt on page 9 from Garrett Bluenoses, which is the famous early Canadian commercial pattern company, an excerpt from Garrett Bluenoses' pattern catalog. And it says, "What a happy and useful way to express your creative talents, just as grandmother did, through a quaint but ever new craft. What keener satisfaction can anyone have than that which is derived from creating with your own hands something beautiful, practical, and useful, something which will be a source of pleasure and satisfaction for you and yours for years to come." So sweet. You pull from a lot of historic references and documents, and having that history starting us off at the beginning of the book really sets the tone for a book that is weighted in the past, but will show us patterns that are for now. So it's got like one foot in the past and the other in today. And in that way, it's just such a unique book, I mean, I'm thinking, I don't want to call out other books, but I'm thinking of other books that I've seen recently and the sort of combination of the ratio of what is the recipe for technical information, creative tips, actual patterns. It's different for each book. and history. And most books omit history altogether. But in this case, I think it's really important because it's a very strong Canadian history angle. And that's really important. We don't see a lot of Canadian authors writing books that give a sort of hat tip to the Canadian history of rug making, right? It's all rug making, isn't it? But these are different names, different places, different faces, right? It is interesting to dig in. So at the beginning, there is a chapter called A Bit of Textile History that you will really enjoy reading, and you will love seeing some of these photographs from archives, Nova Scotia archives, seeing people selling their rugs. It looks like one lady selling rugs on the roadside, another woman's working on rugs. I mean, these are just a moment in time. I see Grenfell rugs in one of these pictures here. Yeah, I mean, you did some great research with patents and photography. I think I have, let me see. I put some photos into this show. And again, I was careful not to use. So this is a page that is at the beginning of the history segment with talking about the history of textiles. And I was really taken by this image. This is a Lillian Burke image, right? Remember Lillian Burke was a teacher. We covered her a couple years ago on this show, a series of Coffee Times, and her biography, which is extraordinary. And this sort of group of women who she had working under her, great enterprise. They were able to make commercial rugs and rugs to sell like in department stores and to ship to the U.S. to sell at market. But I love this photograph because this is a truly giant rug. Lillian Burke, her rug hookers and their giant rug. Just the scale of the thing is extraordinary. But seeing, and I'm not going to show you all of these either, but seeing some of these historic photographs is really touching and really moving. And just kind of hardwiring. Joy, great to see you in North Carolina. Happy Friday night. Just looking at some of those photographs, really for me, I just consider this craft to be so romantic because of its history. It really sets the stage, right? It really puts me in the mood to think about rug making because now I've just been reminded of all of the people before us who did this thing. And we're using different tools. We're holding different things in our hand now, in many cases, not so much with hooking, but certainly the punch has changed. And in some cases, the hook has changed. We have many more choices now, don't we? And we have many more choices of materials as well. So the next chapter, Crystal has devoted to tools and materials. And we know how important that is. And I love how open the conversation is. In some of the books, like in the 1980s and 90s that we saw on rug hooking, even though we would consider those contemporary titles, the information in some books, I feel, with including some current titles, I feel is too specific and just not open enough or accepting enough of the idea that different people like to use different methods, right? Crystal's tone is she so gets that part of it, right? That we all will want to make these designs, but holding slightly different tools. Maybe you want to hook yours, maybe I want to punch mine. She makes us very aware of what our choices are without any sense of judgment. Because who needs to be judged about what kind of tool you like to make rugs with? But that sentiment, as we know, still exists. All you need to do is go to the wrong guild meeting, and you will be confronted with that mentality. So it is really nice to see that you're putting in, because you are primarily a puncher. You're talking about the tools in this chapter, and you're talking about, of course, Oxford punch needles, because that is like the queen of the needles, right? The Oxford punch. It is the best one. It's the easiest one to use. It's the most durable. It works the best, right? It's the most expensive because it is the best one, right? It is the benchmark. But you're also talking about unbranded punch needles and Lavore punch needles, the Craftsman punch needle, which was that little one with the black casing to it that was absolutely enormous, right? Tube style punching needles. I really appreciate this entire conversation because so many people, right, are using different tools, have found a tool at a craft store, at a yard sale, and are using something other than, for example, the Oxford. Now, I love Amy. I love the Oxford brand, the books, the projects, the history, the time that she's put into this craft and the whole school, the Oxford school. But at the end of the day, there are other punch needles. And whether you are making a conscious choice to use one of the other ones because you want to first try the craft out before you start investing in the top end tools, or you inherited somebody's tools, or you found something at a yard sale, all of these tools are worthy of a conversation, right? If only to say like what the pros and cons are. I don't like it on the Facebook page when somebody new will hop on and say, I'm looking at getting this kind of punch needle or hook, and someone else will respond with something like, oh no, you need, the Miller, you gotta spend like a crazy amount of money. And it's like a beginner. And I don't edit out those comments because I feel like that squarely fits under the freedom of speech on our Facebook page thing. There's nothing disruptive about that, but I do think it's very misleading when people are always trying to steer you toward the same products and the most expensive products, because I think it shows an utter insensitivity to the fact that not everybody can afford to just buy the most expensive version of everything that we talk about. So I really appreciate that Crystal talks about all kinds of needles, and is saying like, if yours looks more like this, then she's having a conversation with you about that. That's the craftsman there. So that kind of inclusion, I think, is so you, Crystal, and it's so welcome, right? Because it's like you pick stuff up at someone's house, right? There's a thing on Facebook Marketplace, and you go and you're like, what's this? And nobody wants to talk to you, and they make you feel small because it's not like the best kind, Let's not do that anymore. That's just not nice. So I love this intro with the different tools. You talk about traditional rug hooks, pen style punch needles, and you even talk about some vintage tools like the shuttle punch, right? And this shuttle punch, this tool right here, is the reason that we have so much confusion between the term rug hooking and the term punch needle, because at the end of the day, this is a punch needle. This does not hook. It does not pull up material. It pushes down material. It punches material. But we have forever called that a rug shuttle or rug punch, creating confusion at the end of the 19th century that we still have today. Those tools are very fun too. They're, in my opinion, really, they're very historic. They look like little monsters. Each one looks a little bit different. All that rusty sort of hardware, and they're each a different shape. Some look like cellos, guitars. Others just look flat out like monsters. They're so charming and collectible, and that's part of our story. But it is nice to see even this kind of a tool mentioned, because again, you do see these in stores. And if you're a beginner and you're thinking, oh, I've heard of this craft, I'd like to get into doing this, and now I've got a box that says rug making shuttle punch, maybe I can use this. And then you put it on Facebook and everyone's go, boo, don't use that. It's nice to include it, right? Because you can use it. You can use it. And if you do use this tool, you'll probably get a six-pack like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his heyday, right? Because it's so athletic to use this tool. If you need to both lose weight and make a rug, you should totally get this tool. It's the right one. Karen says, the hooks I use for my grandmother are basically a crochet hook with a handle. Nothing special at all, but I wouldn't use anything else. That's such a great point, Karen, because when you have inherited tools from family members or friends, they are so dear for their own reasons in their own way. And you don't want to use anything else, right? Because that's part of the joy of doing your projects, is holding that tool in your hand, right? That very tactile connection to the memory of somebody, or a tool that somebody's handheld for hundreds or thousands of hours. It's a very good point. And at the end of the day, even modern, with very few exceptions, right? The Miller hook, the Hartman hook being exceptions, most rug hooks are made to this day by far. They are crochet tips mounted into a more ergonomic base, right? Even the ones that are like fancy ones. With the exception, at least Donna, this is what Donna Swanson told me, and she is super knowledgeable, with the exception of the Miller hook that has that very curly tip on the end of it, all of the other rug hooks on the market, the base is a crochet hook. The base for the Miller hook is a dental, I don't even want to think about it. But you know, when they get in there and they're like, you feel like you're going to take, you know, like the rake, right? The in between the tooth rake. It's one of those tools. But that is the only brand that uses a different kind of a tip, right? So at the end of the day, we're all, for the most part, using crochet tips that have been modified a little bit, right? A little bit. Danny, great to see you. You also still use crochet hooks. Why not? With a pen squishy holder, I remember that on to make it easier to hold. That's right. Works great. And I have a big variety of hook sizes. So they use a crochet hook with, remember the pen or pencil things that are like mushy plastic colors, and you would put them on your pen to like hold your pen better, and it feels better, you know, especially if you've got these big calluses. You can put those on your hook, right? And that's a great thing to do because it makes it easier and softer to hold, right? Your hand likes that better. So Danny, that's a great tip. Thank you so much. It is so nice to know what we're all using because as you know, I love my Miller hook and that's my go-to hook. But if I'm using monk's cloth, I will not use that Miller hook because that really sharp curly tip will get stuck and snag on my monk's cloth over and over and over. And mama don't want to play that game, right? I don't have enough anythings in my life for that. But the Miller hook works great with rug warp, right, which is very defined, and the linen eye stock it works great with. So we all find our way. Crystal goes on to talk about sort of related products, tools like Danella hooks. Those are super desirable. That's the egg beater shuttle punch, right? It's a punch, but it's referred to as a hook that looks like an egg beater. Super, super collectible on eBay. They often sell for in the hundreds, right? Like 200, 250. Locker hooks, which is a crochet hook with like a needle eye at the end of it. That's a completely different craft, but it does have a crochet tip, and it could be that you could use it depending on your backing, your project, your materials, all of that stuff. And finally, tufting guns, right? So bringing us right into the now with this list of supplies. And then a page about basic tools and anything that you might want to use in conjunction. And not everybody uses everything, right? But at least you know what kind, at least if you're a beginner, you take as many of the things that are on this list out and put them on your table. So if need be, you can grab them because you know they might come into service. The next section is about materials, and this is important because particularly if you're punching, right? I mean, I have strong opinions of this, and I know we all work differently. But I know for punching more than for hooking, I am personally not a fan of burlap and linen, and I know a lot of people punch into both of those, but I never do. I never do, and I don't want to influence you, right? Try it and see if you like it because other people do. Sorry, Buttons is barking as something's off, but I'm gonna let him go until the person walks by the house, unless someone's breaking in. Then we'll all know, like very, very shortly. And the kinds of yarns that you would want to use. She talks about wool rug yarn, right? So, and beautifully illustrated, right? Beautifully illustrated, very enticing. Just this sort of casual feel to the photography, the speaking tone. It's a teaching tone, but it's so friendly and familiar, you know, strikes just the right chord. Also getting into conversations on acrylic and synthetic yarn, right? And again, these are some of these subtopics are not things that we talk about in rug hooking because it has not been that long, right? As rug hookers, and it's not even for everyone. It has not been that long since it's even since you would even say out loud that you use something other than 100% milled wool or 100% yarn. It hasn't been that long. Lately, we talk about it all the time. Wendy's hooking with garbage bags and shopping bags. I hook with velvet and pantyhose and roving and bat and all kinds of different stuff. We all have our favorite things to hook with, t-shirt material, but it's not always wool yarn or wool material anymore. And it's another example of being inclusive to say that, right? To say, well, you might have some acrylic yarn. It's also going to work great. Right? It's absolutely going to work great. It all boils down to, do you like the way it looks? While you're working on your piece, do you like the way it looks? It doesn't matter, It doesn't matter if someone else would use acrylic yarn or not. It doesn't matter at all. Everybody's got to be who they are. Do buttons. Sorry. I think I'm the only one here tonight. Everyone's out. So hopefully someone is not breaking in. And then the much needed conversation on backing materials, because we know seeing beginners come to the craft, it's always heartbreaking when people buy the wrong monk's cloth or the wrong backing material, because nothing is cheap these days, right? Now, don't get me started. Nothing is cheap. And you want to be using the right material the first time you buy something, right? The first time you cross someone's palm with silver, you want to have bought the right thing. You don't want to be buying extra material, because it just makes you feel sick when you've got a bunch of stuff sitting around that you can't use for anything. And don't you then keep it and put it over on the side so you don't see it all the time and it doesn't trigger you, but you keep it just in case you can think of a way to use it again. And then a decade goes by and you think, I'm just going to put that in the donate pile because obviously I'm not using that. And I knew I never would, right? Oh, I bet we all do that. And then a conversation about frames. And what I really like about this conversation is Crystal is talking about gripper frames, but not necessarily lap frames. Now, I'm not going to do a long thing on this because I want to look at some of the more inspirational stuff, but these window pane frames, right, are fantastic because they have the gripper strips, right? So those the needle edges on them, and they hold whatever your backing material is, they hold it really well. So you've got your gripper strips, your material really tight over your window pane frames. And you can use, whether you are a rug hooker or a punch needler, you can use these window pane frames as long as you have something to lean up against, right? I mean, I can't, for myself, I know where I sit in the living room when I work on stuff. I couldn't just have a gripper frame on my lap and be able to hold it, have one hand under it for my hooking, and unless I was punching. If I'm punching, I can put it on my lap, hold it, and punch with the other hand. But if I'm hooking, I need to lean that window pane frame up against something. Of course I do, right? But it's a good tool to remember, because the window pane frames are a lot less expensive than, than lap frames that have a lap component that you put on your lap, and then the gripper frame on top. Because as rug hookers, right, we need to put one hand under and we have one hand over. So you need two hands are busy. You can't, there's not, unless you're an octopus woman or man, there's not another hand to actually hold it. So you need to lean against something. But I don't think we talk about these window pane frames often enough, because it is like the best kind of sort of closure or fastening you can get, putting your material over these things. It is the tightest, the most taut that you can get. But these window pane frames I always used to think of as tools for punchers and not hookers for this very reason. However, when I taught the class today, right, we had the really wide hoops, the Frederick hoops. So same idea, right? You need one hand under, so just leaning them against the table. And everybody was able to hook without, I put one person on a lap frame, right, with a gripper frame. I put one person on one, but because she had a lot of carpal tunnel problems. So if it weren't for that, I mean, everybody else was fine with the hoop. Those really thick hoops are exceptionally good, I have to say, in comparison to like the Susan Bates, right? The plastic ones, the square ones, I forget what those are called. But the really thick hoops really are the best. They're really quilters hoops. But embroiderers can use them, rug makers can use them. They hold material the best, without a doubt. I mean, it's a nice, they are like $40 on Amazon. So there's that, right? There's that. Crystal also gets into a conversation that we never see in books, and this is an important one. This is a real sort of artisan conversation. How to get gripper strips, turn them into a frame that you then stretch your material over. This is such an important conversation because, for example, this is what I'm talking about. The idea of using gripper strips, right? And she shows you step by step how to make a frame and stretch that monk's cloth over it. That becomes your frame, right? You don't need the gripper strip window pane frame anymore. You don't need the hoop. This is your frame. You are punching into this frame or hooking into this frame. The only thing about these kinds of frames is that once you get to the center, right? So this is like a homemade frame, old-timey style. once you get out of the center to the edges, right, you need to take it off, or you just don't finish the edges. You get to work right to the border. Now, have you ever looked at picture frames at Michael's and Joann's? Sometimes the wood comes really, really, really far in. And those are no good for hooking or punching because there's too much wood in the back. There's not enough opening where you might get through, whether you're punching or hooking. That's why the idea of stretching something with stretcher bars is a great idea. And you can buy them according to what size you want. You literally just dovetail them together. If you have a staple gun, just staple or nail or just secure them on the corners. And then stretch your backing material and staple gun it. Crystal describes exactly what to do here. And then she's showing us other kinds of ways to hold your piece. Like hoops, like a Shetty Comp frame, which is a floor frame, right? Specifically Canadian-styled floor frame. So the first 30 pages are an introduction, super useful, history, and this conversation that is just enough. It is just enough. It's a little bit on everything that you can think of that has to do with tools, backing material, and getting your frame ready. So whether or not you have a frame or want to buy a frame, with this book, you know you can at least make a frame, and you're going to get step-by-step directions as to how to do that. The next section, let me just take, I just ate some food with really spicy condiments on it. I'm wondering if I'm going to be super thirsty now. So good. Oh, fresh. The next section is on setting up. Now, this is important, isn't it? Because if you think about it, when you are a beginner and you're getting going, and this happened today in class, you know, everybody gets their pattern that they're working on and maybe pick some colors that they're going to use. And then there's the moment of, and what now, right? You've got your stuff. It's all in front of you, but you do need to have that bridge conversation. What now, right? What do I do in what order? And depending on whether or not you're teaching, whether like me teaching today or Crystal teaching with this book, and again, if you're joining us later, we're looking at Crystal Ross's book, Punch Needle Rug Hooking Handbook, Techniques and Playful Projects. Whether you're teaching in person or you're teaching through a book, there will always be people who have not done any textile craft before. There will be people who've done embroidery and they weave, right? They're used to putting their looms in order. They've done every other kind of fiber art and every other kind of art. Those people just look at their stuff like a puzzle and they just put it all together and get going. People who haven't had that experience need to know what to do for a second and third. And that's what the setting up chapter is really great for. Most books don't have this section, I have to say. Just the idea that you would talk to people about preparing your backing material, transferring your pattern, because the patterns are they in the book? No, the projects are. But you need to get your design onto your backing fabric, so you need to have that conversation with someone. Setting up the gripper strip frame, threading your punch needle or threading your Lavore tube style and pen style needles, right? They're all different in how you thread them. Pictures, right? Illustrations of how to thread all of those different kinds of tools. You would think it would be intuitive how to thread these various hand needle rug making tools. It's not always, is it? Sometimes you feel like a special kind of ding-dong because you just can't figure it out. I have that too. It's like, wait a minute, there should be one more hole, or what's that one for? What's that metal ding-a-ling thing for? Very, very frustrating. So good to have those kinds of conversations, particularly for people like me who have a lot of vintage tools that I don't use because I haven't figured out how to use them. Right? Be very helpful conversation. The next section is on punch needle and rug hooking basics. Punching a row, right? With tips, with notes, right? To say, do you want to do it this way? You want to do it that way? Think about this while you do it. And meanwhile, everything just so beautifully illustrated, right? Everything is like so fetching and appealing, color-wise, energy-wise. I think this is a great time of year for this book to come out as we kind of crawl into spring right now. The projects are so fresh, you know. Looking at these nice bright colors and these nice light backgrounds, it does make you feel like, these are projects that I want to do in the spring and summer, right? They feel so fresh to me that I want to push the season and do these projects right now. It's a really good time to see this book premiere. So going through outlining how when you look at your pattern on the backing, what are the first things you want to think of, right? As you hold the tool in your hand, right? Whether you're punching or hooking, as you hold the tool in your hand and you're thinking, okay, let's do this thing, but you don't want to quite use it yet, right? You want to be walked through what you're doing, why you're doing it before you start doing something, and then you read on and you go, oh, did I do that? Right? Before you do that, yeah, it gives you lots of great techniques. It talks about filling shapes and backgrounds, um, which I think is extremely handy because we do tend to talk about, I'm looking at this page here, and particularly Crystal's illustration here. We tend to talk about directional hooking and background, or not just background fills, any fill, right? This is a fairly technical conversation, at least this part of the show tonight. We tend to talk about any kind of a fill as being in rug hooking like an opportunity to do some directional work, right? Directional hooking. And we tend to overlook the idea that with punching, you can do directional punching. Depending on your style of punching, right? What kind of material you're using. If you're using really thick yarn, you will have a better chance of the sort of flow of the piece showing directionally than if you were using, like I often use, like sock yarn, and you get such a small loop. There really is no question of directional hooking. You don't get it. You can't see it. You can't effectively create directional hooking. With thicker yarns, you can, right? And depending on if you're punching, how long you're carrying your stitches, if you're punching on the front or the back, right? All of these different techniques that one might employ, you get different effects with all of them. Crystal, I was super impressed that you put this balancing stitch density page in. This is like, I'm not going to show you every page, but I just want to show you this, right? Because this is what I want to know about fancy stitches for punchers. This is like an incredible guide to fancy punch stitches. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, because in these cases, right, she's using yarn. So yarn doesn't always show up in terms of, being able to create a pattern. It doesn't always show up very well. In these examples, it's showing up very well because she's stitching a specific pattern, right? And she's attaching language to them so we know what to call that thing, right? So this is extremely helpful because things like this, these kinds of pages where it's showing you lots of stitches and how to do them, these kinds of things are very often very highly guarded, right? I don't like it, but that's the way it can be. And I understand everybody needs something to trade on, right? Expertise or special knowledge. But it is a real gift when an author is kind and forthcoming enough to put these kinds of how-tos, right? To show you this kind of really specialized and coveted information in a book, right? And giving everybody the opportunity to give it a try. Because some of this stuff is really behind certifications, right? Some of it is. And sure, you can figure it out on your own, or you can get a book like this where it shows you your choices, right? I think the idea of being thoughtful about whether you're hooking or punching, being thoughtful about the way that you're working, right? The patterns that you make as you work, as you do fills. I think it's really important to be thoughtful about it. And if you're not thoughtful about it, the polar opposite for hookers is called higgledy-piggledy. We talked about this in class. Working in a higgledy-piggledy style, to me, is super desirable. It's a really old-time, old-fashioned style, no directional hooking, right? Total absence of directional hooking. And as I said today when we were together, the thing about higgledy-piggledy is if you haven't had a teacher helicoptering over your shoulder and saying, try to smooth that out. Try to put those loops, whether you're punching or hooking, into order a little bit more neatly, right? If someone hasn't been over your shoulder saying that to you and you have evolved a style of higgledy-piggledy with no directional flow, that's a gift. I really think that's a gift because as soon as you if you sign up for classes and you start taking classes with teachers, it'll be like nuns, right? Nuns and signet rings at school. They will get you out of that habit really fast. And once you are out of that habit, it's almost impossible to do it again. And you think, oh, it must be the easiest thing in the world to just hook mindlessly, thoughtlessly. It's not. It's not. Once you have been out trained to work in that loose style, it's very hard to get it back. It is a gift, right? Karen says, I keep a square of monk's cloth that I hook and punch small squares with different wools and yarns and stockings to see what they'll look like and how they feel hooking. That's a great idea. You make like a sampler for yourself where you produce different patterns, right, with different materials, and then the little test squares. You know exactly how they're going to look. That's really that shows that you do adulting, right? That's some good adulting. The only reason I don't do that, Sharon, is because of time. Because ideally, I would do that every time I was working on something, just to be sure that I was about to do what I meant to do. If you have time, if you can at all make time to do this, it is like a great practice to just like always ongoing, no matter how experienced you are. It is a great practice to get in the habit of just doing a test square of what you mean, or to just create a sampler where you are figuring out different stitches and what different stitches look like. How do you think all these stitches came to be in the first place, right? And for embroiderers and people who do crewel and long stitch and bargello and things like that, how do you think they figured out all those designs? It was sitting around trying it out, right? Hey, Joss.
My toenail's bleeding.
Your toenail's bleeding?
Yeah.
What? Why?
Because I bit my toenail.
Oh, you bit your toenail?
Don't ask Kava.
Okay.
I'm more flexible than I thought, apparently.
Okay, so stop. She's not on camera. She's biting her toenail. You want to come say hi?
Yeah. Look at my toenail. I cut off the
part. Oh, honey, that gives me the super heebie-jeebies. There she is. She bit her toenail so low that, okay.
Don't ask how I bit my toenail. I'm more flexible
Well,
than
I mean, I think there's only one way to bite your toenail. I have to admit, I bit my toenails when I was young, too. It must run in the family. I always bit my toenails.
But yeah, my toe
we've got a great crotch shot right here, Joss. Great. Oh, honey, that is so gross. You're making me feel weak. Go put a Band-Aid on it. Here's a tissue. Go put a Band-Aid on it, you crazy vampire. Okay, you can use that tissue. Do not touch that toe anymore. Doesn't that hurt?
Nah. Not too bad.
All right. All righties. Troubleshooting.
But it was tasty.
I'm glad. That's your protein for the day, huh?
Yeah.
Troubleshooting. Again, it's such a great thing where you get a book where the author tells you what to look out for, because it is a disadvantage, right? Let's be honest. It is a disadvantage to learn something like a handcraft not in person. It's way easier in person because the teacher can come around and look at your stuff and say, well, okay, you're hooking or punching super low, but it looks good. If you like this height, then this is you, right? At least for this project.
Can I put a Band-Aid on it? It's pretty low, but...
Put a Band-Aid on it, honey. Oh, honey. Put a Band-Aid on it.
It looked appetizing, and they were getting too long.
What does this mean? What does this mean? Is there a special word for people who snack on their... No, it's definitely not that word. It's definitely... And I'm on camera, so don't even make those jokes.
I'm joking.
Okay, sorry about that. Go. Children. If you hear... Sorry about that. If you hear... a crunching sound, right? A crunching sound. All your buddies are saying hi to you, Joss. What do I need to look out for if I'm at home and there isn't a teacher standing over my shoulder? Oh, I heard a crunching sound. That can't be good, right? No, it's definitely not good, right? So Crystal is going through some of the things that might happen, right? Particularly with punch, when you're punching and you punch too close to the stitch before and you knock the previous loop out, completely out, and you don't know, and you happily go on punching, and then you flip your work over and you see there's a bunch of instances where you have accidentally punched the last stitch out. There's all kinds of things to look out for, right? And it's nice to have troubleshooting sections in books like this so that if you read it, right, you might not remember it word for word, but you might think while you're working, I think I heard the sound. And then you do want to flip over your work and look at it and say, yep, All right. And then the following section is fixing mistakes, right? Fixing them. Yeah, you don't just mourn, right? When you make a mistake, you need to figure out what to do sooner rather than later to fix it, right? It's always my policy and my advice to, if you're making mistakes or if things are going wrong, really wrong, not like I'm not sure if I like this color, but like you actually made a mistake, you knocked some stitches out, God forbid you made a hole, something like that. You do want to fix those things sooner rather than later, right? That old adage, a stitch in time saves nine. There's a reason. There's a reason why people still say that, right? There's also a section on moving your work on a gripper frame, right? And we talk about this. We don't talk about this enough because I'm more of a rug hooker than a puncher. But you know logically that if you are a puncher, I don't have my frames because I brought them to class. If you are working on a gripper frame and you are a puncher, you are working upside down. So when you punch the section that you can punch, and maybe your piece is bigger probably than the frame you're working on, because you're working in reverse, your loops are on the other side. What happens when you carefully take your piece off the frame and you need to move it onto a different part of the frame? What happens then? Because now your loops that are on the reverse are touching your gripper strips. They're like shark's teeth, right? And you're thinking, ooh, that's not good. So you don't want to make contact with your loops. Well, Crystal walks you through that whole conversation in this chapter. So you can safely move your piece on your frame. There is a right way and a wrong way to do it. Blocking and tidying up loops. She talks about, particularly with punching, when you turn it over and there are always some rogue loops that don't look as good as others. She talks about, and I have never seen this section in a book before. At some length, she talks about tidying up some loops, right? Sometimes they're facing the wrong way. Sometimes they get split. There's things that are wrong. How can you fix that? You can fix it. And this section will tell you how to fix those things. That's much more of a punch thing than a hooking thing. Because with hooking, you see it when you do it, and you get the chance right away to fix it. But with punching, you don't see it until you flip it over. And then it's like, sometimes your stomach just drops because you're like, oh, there's so many things that are not okay for me that I need to fix, right? You just get going. You just get going and start fixing them. Blocking. See, these are all the practical things. Blocking is when you apply heat safely so that you press the surface of your piece. And finishing, right? Finishing with glue, finishing by hemming, right? So with a needle, different choices for finishing, depending on what you're turning your piece into. Is it going to be a pillow? Is it going to be something for the wall? Is it going to be something for the floor? So she talks about different techniques for finishing. This is a very well illustrated and handy section. You see this picture alone. For people who have experience, right, this is well illustrated with text as well. But a picture like this, if you are already a hooker, you look at that picture and you say, okay, I fully understand what's going on there. That's obviously a three-dimensional or a two-sided piece, right? But the illustrations, both the illustration, like the drawings, right? They're like computer generated, right? So they're really clear, and the photography types of illustrations. Sorry, 4:15 this morning. Together make a really clear story of what you need to do, right? Whatever stage you're working on, whatever you're doing. You're going to be able to look at these pictures and figure out what to do very easily, right? No confusion. So the next section is a hand sewing stitch guide. Also super handy for doing stuff like this, right? Finishing your stuff up like this, right? I have to admit, doing different kinds of stitches. Let me conclude this thought. Mitering your corners, doing ladder stitch, doing back stitch, blanket stitch, doing all kinds of stitches that you could use to finish or make decorative edges on your finished pieces, depending on what their destiny is in terms of what they will become. These are also important because not everybody, number one, will learn with a teacher. That's not even a choice for some people. Not everybody will learn that way. Not everybody enjoys learning on YouTube. And, obviously, right, we all learn differently. A lot of people like to learn from a book, right? And if you like to learn from a book, this is going to be a good book because it's very well illustrated. And it has a real focus on hooked and punched rugs, right? The next section is caring for hand hooked rugs. And something we all need to know, general maintenance, how to clean stuff, right? How to deal with tragedy when tragedy, God forbid, strikes, spot cleaning, machine cleaning, full washing, cleaning with snow. Um, things that people constantly ask about in the Facebook group, right? I mean, when I'm looking at the headings of these chapters and then the sort of subsections, it's like these are the things that people are always asking, as they should, because not because they're not paying attention or they're not. Everybody learns in different ways. Some people can only learn with a teacher. Some people can only learn with a book. Some people can only learn with a video and they keep pausing it every 5 seconds. Gayla, good to see you. Everybody learns differently, right? And that's why it's great when people ask questions. Even if you've heard the question 10,000 times, it's great because you know that they're learning something and that they'll be able to continue their journey because now they know. Now they know that, right? Someone else will ask tomorrow. But yeah, these are all things that we have. And sometimes the way that you finish a rug is different than the way I finish a rug, even if we're whip stitching it, right? We're both whip stitching it. We do it in different ways. So it's good to see. It's always good to pay attention to ways that other people work because you might love the way you work, but then you might see someone else and think, but wait, that looks even easier than what I've been doing all along, and you don't know unless you're open to it. So the next section is unexpected, right? Because this is a very full book in terms of the number of patterns that are in it, the number of projects that are in it, also all the technical information. However, there is a section on dyeing wool yarns. So Crystal works with wool yarn, and she dyes, right? She dyes it. So you don't often get a section on dyeing in a book with this much how-to and so many creative projects, right? It's like the Holy Trinity, right? It's got some of everything, and it's very well balanced. So a nice section on this chapter's golden ochre yarn, making a specific color with very specific dye directions, right? So again, if you love learning from books and you want to work on dyeing, this is going to do it for you. Like this is going to completely do it for you. It tells you temperatures, amounts, everything you need to get that color. And you'll notice Crystal does use, it's not like she has a limited color palette, but it's not infinite, right? She has a color palette. There are colors that she likes and she likes to return to. And these are the colors that, that the yellow ochre, I think, is her signature color. Once you sort of pick up on colors that she's using, if you are trying to recreate one of her projects, it's good to have a dye recipe that is hers, or at least a conversation about color, right? So that you're thinking, oh, I don't have exactly the same color, but I'd like it to look a lot like the project in the book, right? All of this conversation is going to help you with making your color plan. And there's a section on design and colors. So designing your own rug, should you want to design your own rug, right? A conversation on that. And I just love this illustration for designing your own rug. It's so super pretty, isn't it? All of the different sketches, and we all work different ways, right? We all work different ways. I exclusively, those, oh, that might be Crystal's hands. I thought those were little Vera's hands they might be with the pastel chalks, Some of this looks like watercolor, some of it looks like crayon. We all work differently. A lot of us at this point are designing on tablets, on the computer. I so don't, right? That's why I don't even know what the right word is. I've thought, is tablet the right word? But I mean, a lot of people design in a digital way. I'm not even sure that's the right word. Kirsten would know because she does, and she's able to get infinite color choices and really make a really clear color plan, very fine line drawing using a computer something, right? I'm not super knowledgeable in that area. I always design on Post-it notes, and if I like it on a Post-it note, right, then I know it's a simple enough design that I'll be able to blow it up, evolve it a little bit, but that I know if it works on a post-it note that it's not going to become too busy, because in at least for the scale of rugs that I do in my life, I don't want a big Lillian Burke rug, right? I don't want it to become too busy, and I'm always at risk of making things a bit too fussy, you know. Everybody has their own um, sort of routine or technique for creating original design. So Crystal tells you about hers in this chapter and breaks down the conversation into a conversation about primitive hooking, right? And primitive hooking is, it typically means a wide cut, a number 8 cut or above. Primitive hooking, the design, right? A primitive design has certain features, right? There are certain attributes to a primitive design that you would say, oh, that is a primitive style design, right? So, conversation about primitive hooking versus fine hooking. Fine hooking is a much narrower cut, right? Finer cut, right? Much more detail, much smaller loops, completely different feel. Versus abstract and geometric hooking, right? Conversations on all of these things. And not an overwhelming amount, but a lot of text that is written in a very conversational voice that will help you sort of crystallize your thoughts and your plans. If you're designing a rug, this conversation on designing, on color, color planning, on tint, on shade, on tone, right? Because not everybody right off the top of your head is going to be able to define those things. They are all important if you are doing your own design and your own color plan from scratch. She talks about inspiration. She talks about design and embracing mistakes. And calculating, the all important calculating yarn and backing amounts. That is important. That's an area where I don't have a lot of expertise because I don't do a lot of punching, right? So it's always difficult for me when people say, how do you calculate? Well, there is a ratio in this book, right? So that is something that is definitely worth having. The templates for the projects in this book are available as templates, and there is a scan, right? So you can scan or go to the website that is printed in the book and download the templates. So you can actually get the line drawings to the projects that are present here in this book, right? So you can look at the projects in this book, and if you decide I'll do that one or that one, you have every possible way of getting those designs onto your computer, so you can then use the information at the beginning of the book to transfer the design onto backing. And here we go with some really lovely projects. Now, Crystal, I have to say I was surprised. I wasn't expecting, I'm so happily surprised that there is such a variety of different kinds of projects in this book. There's lots of rugs, but you also have like chair pads. The first one is a trivet. You have more than one three-dimensional thing. So it's a nice variety of things. And I think that will really speak to hookers and punchers who are not just rug makers. Because, Crystal, I know that you love the sort of utilitarian, sort of historic backbone to this craft, right? The reason people did this craft is because they actually needed a rug. But so many of us now are making things for the wall. I think it's great to acknowledge that and to give people, some of us are out of space both on the floor and on the walls, and you're still looking for projects to do. So it's great to have a nice variety of projects. Let's look at some of the stuff, some of the playful projects that are in this book. Hang on. So this is the floral trivet, and nice simple piece to start out with. Hold on one second while I take a sip. Cheers, my dears. Oh, I'm going to be in trouble for thirst tonight after that spicy stuff. This is a great project to start with, right? Because it's classic crystal in its design, beautiful flower, nice manageable size, right? This is not an overwhelming size. This piece was done on monk's cloth, and this is 12 to 14 holes per inch monk's cloth. With finished edges 19 by 22. I'm thinking that's centimeters. Is that centimeters? Maybe that's inches. Um, and for every project, Crystal is saying what kind of weight. 4 ounce bulky weight wool rug yarn in cream, right? Very specific. So she's telling you exactly what to use, because if you don't have that material and you do have other material, at least you can compare it to what you've got. What's the worst thing that can happen if you use your wool instead of the 4 ounce bulky weight? The worst thing that can happen is you have a slightly different scaled project when you're finished, but you're still going to have the flower trivet, right? Beautiful, simple design that has so much charisma. There is something about Crystal's design. It's such a variety of things that make it so unusual, because they are simple designs, but I would know anywhere that this is a Crystal. Just the slight asymmetry, right? That's one of the things. The slight asymmetry. The flower is not equal or even, but it's a very strong shape. Almost gives you the feel of like a Matisse collage kind of thing. Um, and I'm just going to show you a little bit of a flash here. I'm not going to do this for every chapter, but this kind of in-depth information that brings you through the punching, stages of the punching, filling it in, taking it off the frame, clipping it, finishing it. Sorry, yawning. Sorry. That's that waking up early thing. Dang it. Tidying it up, fixing the when you flip it over, fixing the little rogue loops that are not quite right, blocking it, and then doing the finishing edge in the style of your choice. So all of these things are lavishly illustrated for each project before she moves on to a different project. So the second half of the book is very project driven. We are looking at a series of projects that are all explained in that kind of detail. And where it's applicable, also notes. Now, remember to do this, right? So she's giving you tips and reminders that kind of harken back to the beginning of the book, so that you can get through these projects making as few mistakes as possible. Judy says maybe be cm centimeters, or that's a very large mug rug. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking too. That can't be 22. Or that's like, yeah, or it's like Jack and the Beanstalk times, like that giant smug. No, that has to be centimeters, right? Has to be. Yeah, there's just something about her style. Let's look at the next project. Um, you know how we always say this is bird in the garden floor rug. So this is a floor size rug, 29 and a half by 36. And there goes Buttons. Joss, don't let Buttons outside. Yeah, there's like a family of lynx in this neighborhood. What? No. This, just for scale, is the rug, right, that I'm showing you here. But you can see the way she's holding it, the kind of size that it is. Let's come back over here. So this one is called Bird in the Garden Floor Rug. And this, to me, is Crystal at her best. It has that Matisse collage feel to it, right? Or stencil, right? It has a very silhouette driven feel to it, but it's so colorful. The colors are contemporary, but the shapes are always unexpected, right? Even the border is unexpected. How many borders have we seen on this show, right? It's infinite. I haven't seen this border. And it's such a simple border, right? How come I haven't seen this? Well, because it takes Crystal to come up with this. It really is, it's very unusual. It's very thoughtful design. It is simple, but remember that simple is hard, right? The less fussy a thing is, the harder it is to do. When you're doing a big fussy project, like a big busy composition, you have lots of chances. If it's weak in this one area, like the view out the window, you can make it stronger in another area. You've got lots of chances. When you work on designs like the flower trivet and this bird in the garden floor rug, there's no room for error, right? The color palette, the information, the story of the rug, right? The bird flying, this beautiful garden border, all of it, all of this information and storytelling has been put into a crucible, burnt down, and you are left with like the bare bones of this story. It is unintentional pun, but it is like it crystallized, right? Crystal has crystallized this. I can't believe I haven't said that before. Sorry. But it's true, right? It's hard to do simple things. Even just for me, the shape of the bird, right? There's something about the shape of the bird that is so whimsical and folky. It's different, right? The bird, the wings start right above the head. We're not seeing the sort of thinning out of the bird at the neck, right? It goes right into that wide wingspan, and the little tail span really, really unusual. And it's an unusual shape for a bird, but you can see it easily it's a bird. It's a magical silhouette. And the repeat of the little dark eye and the dark centers of the flowers, that's really unusual. Very pretty. It's also color-wise a very inspired piece because we are talking about neutrals. We've got black and white, but it's a very colorful rug. Considering that the leaves are black, right? You might think, "Ooh, if I'm going to make the leaves black, will I have enough?" Oh, actually, they're dark green. They're dark green. That's my photograph. But it is a limited color palette. And sometimes you think, will I be able to get enough colors in there to make it feel really colorful? With a limited color palette, you can. You just have to be thoughtful about how you're laying out the colors, right? Where they appear, and which colors you're using. Pull colors from different color families instead of tones of the same color, right? Just different tonal value. And again, in the following pages to each project, she's showing you actually punching the thing and then taking it off of the frame, repositioning it. She's sort of repeating. She's showing you in illustration things that we've talked about before, but she's showing you them. You got to do this now, right? Here it is. Here's a photograph of it. You got to do this now if you want this to come out right. And then finishing, right? She's telling you how to finish this rug. So this book, in my mind, functions more along the lines of a class, because when you read a book traditionally, like I wouldn't call this a how-to book because it's also a gallery book, but when you're reading a book, usually it's like this section is this information. If you forget, or when you get to that part in your project, you're going to need to flip back to that and reread that because you're not there yet. It's really nice to see built into the chapters, like just a nutshell reminder of what you have to do next, in what order, right? In what order. That is helpful. And that's how teaching works. That's how it would work in a class, right? I would maybe tell you stuff at the beginning, but then when I see you get to that part, I would say, do you remember, here's where you need to fold the corner up, and right, because you want to make sure there's no extra bulk, you're going to miter your corners. If I was teaching, I would be doing that at that point. And this is the way the book works. There's different flow to every kind of book, right? I think the flow for this book is really, really very, very clear. And, even for someone like me I've punched quite a bit, I'm still seeing things that are illustrated here. And again, I'm not showing you like half of the pages, but I'm seeing things that I haven't thought of myself. And I'm thinking, ooh, right. How come that wasn't obvious? Because I've been doing it a different way all along. And I see a lot of instances where, well, that looks a lot better. That makes a lot more sense. So let me see I know what project I've got left. I'm leaving a lot of the projects, suspense-wise for if you're loving this book and you end up getting this book, I want you to be surprised when you flip through the pages and you see a lot of these chapters. I don't want to cover it all to the extent that you're not surprised when you see these. So this next project is called Home Sweet Home Doorstop. I really love this. This is a great three-dimensional project. I have to admit, sometimes I struggle with three-dimensional projects because I often have the feel, what for? Like, I see someone do something that's three-dimensional. My brain just says, God, what a lot of work. What for? This is not one of those projects. One of the things I know for sure about Crystal is that Um, she's got that great sort of Canadian spirit. She's got that really green spirit. She likes it when things are utilitarian, right? And that is part of her look, right? You can tell that just by looking at her style of design. She does a lot of very what look basic but are quite tricky composition pieces, like the bird in the garden that we just saw. And the fact of her loving utilitarian stuff, much more. Do you want to show your mask? Much more
I
than
was
decorative stuff.
I was coming down here to ask, on TikTok to go live, you need to be over 18.
Okay, we're not having this conversation while I'm live. We're
Yeah.
not having it while I'm live. Here, come and show your mask. She always does this.
Okay.
Oh, it's green. The green screen's gonna.
What
Yeah.
happened to it?
I know. It's a green alien mask. Your lips are really chapped. Sorry.
It's green. Just pretend it's green.
It's really bright green. It's like lime green. This is one of the masks that you made, and it has like a fuzzy surface. It's like fleece.
Is there a way to turn off the green
It is off. There's something wrong with this program because it still always shows everything on the green screen. Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? Yeah, it always does that. But you see, she's got mesh in the eyes. She
Wait, hold on.
applies that to the eyes. One of the eyes, well, they both have
so
stars for pupils. She makes these little shapes like this. How cute is this? And look at what hard work, right? Because it's just a regular mask like that, and she builds the ears and everything. This is an alien dog, isn't it? Is this an alien dog?
Yeah, except it's like bright green.
It's bright green. It is like it's like radioactive lime green. Oh, look. You got some comments. Cass says, I love the mask. You are so creative, Jocelyn. And
There's
Gail
really
says,
no way to
Joss, you
turn
are
off the green
so
screen
clever.
thing?
Joss,
That's
the
so
green
weird.
screen is off. There's a problem with this program that it won't go away. It'll never go away. It'll be there forever.
That's so weird.
I know, it's very frustrating because you know why I was late today? I put on a green sweater. And I came down here and I was on time. And then I looked at myself in the camera and I was like, oh, I'm going to make everybody seasick because it looks so weird when you see something green. So I had to run upstairs and just put on my pajamas. I'm sorry. It is a beautiful piece.
This looks so weird. What even do you have as your green screen? Like, what is that?
Well, if I have the green screen behind me, that doesn't change the fact that everything, that the green still looks weird, right? Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it is kind of cool. The way it's not green.
Right. All right, let me do some more rug stuff. Very cool. And yeah,
Is
we'll
there
talk
a
about
way
that later.
I can make myself look 21 for this
Jocelyn,
particular
there is not a
photo?
way that you can make yourself look 21.
Or just like a screen.
We're having this conversation later, okay, baby?
Can I use your
No, you cannot use my face.
You look 21.
Stop it. We'll talk about this later. I don't look 21. I don't
You
look 21.
sure?
She so wants to have a channel to do content and show her stuff.
You originally had to have 1,000 followers, but I only have the 230 on the account I post my masks on, but it's letting me go live for some reason.
Because you have a mask on. But they're going to be.
No,
I'm
no,
not having.
like-
I'm live.
no,
I'm live. I'm not
okay.
having this conversation. We'll talk about how to make you 21 when I'm done with the show. I'm sorry. All right. So the interesting thing about, sorry about that, Jim Henson's, Rita says, Jim Henson's puppeteers will be knocking on your door soon, right? I mean, and all of her masks are so different. She's so creative. Isn't it funny that curious, isn't it curious that I'm just sitting here working on creative rug stuff all the time? And I'm right here for her if she would like to ever do anything like this. And occasionally she does a design, for the brand or whatever. But no, this isn't her thing at this moment. That's her thing. And, isn't it great when people find their thing, whatever it is, I just wish it was this. But I'm very happy for her to do that. It's crazy enough to fit into the family, that's for sure. So the thing about Crystal being very utilitarian, right? Having that spirit of wanting to, everything having not just a decorative quality, but a useful quality. No, you're right, Rita. She is definitely marching to her own drummer. If I get in the way, she's gonna run me over. So I just go along with it. Now, wouldn't you say that a doorstop is a very smart and utilitarian thing? Now, think about it. Remember in like the 1950s and 60s, how many people made those needlepoint brick covers? Remember that? That was a thing, wasn't it? And I remember, I don't remember, but I know in retrospect that there people like Happy de Franza. There were some artists in the 80s and 90s who made designs that were for doorstops that were like wraparound. Pearl McGowan did some doorstops, right, that would go over a brick. Um, those were all well and good, but you gotta give it to Crystal. This is absolutely adorable. This little home sweet home, little cottage doorstop, punched the same way, but of course, because this is a three-dimensional piece, right? And this is what it looks like from the side, right? It's like a little pizza wedge like this, right? This is both beautiful textile, hooked slash punched, and it is absolutely utilitarian, right? In this 1920 house, half of the doors don't shut unless you force them to or put something against them, right? The doorknob is jacked up or whatever. We've got like a hook and eye closure on stuff. Doors just flap open and it drives me nuts. But something like this, what a charming opportunity to do a hooking project that is still utilitarian. Maybe you could make this pattern, sort of adapt it so that it looks more like your home. Wouldn't that be something? Now, I think that would really be something. It has little flowers in there. It's just so cute. It's cute as a button. And the flowers are, oh, I see. She did a sneaky technique with the flowers. I see. You'll have to get the book to see. I see what she's doing. It's not intuitive, but it's smart. Did you notice that the flowers were raised like Waldeboro style? Doorstop, yes, Karen. Yes, the doorstop also works really well for bookends. That's a great point. That's a great point. Um, and there is a base underneath it. It's a very clever base, and I don't want to spoil it. But how she gets this to be heavy is very, very smart. This is a simple project. This is a great rug hooking slash punching project. It's a simple sewing project because we are talking about something that's three-dimensional. It's a simple sewing project. It's something that anybody could do, honestly. The directions are so good for this. I think it would be really adorable. Oh, here comes Buttons. Come here, honey. I think it'd be really adorable to do this and make it look like, come here, honey. You coming up? Like your own home, right? Or your favorite flowers out front. Such a sweet thing. I love Karen's idea of using it as a book stop as well. Really adorable and plenty of directions. Yes, I mean, I'm not, no judgment, but sometimes I do struggle with three-dimensional stuff because I just think like, do we need one of those in the world? Like, I mean, I don't, it's not for me to say, right? I can only account for my own time and my own taste. But sometimes I think, what a lot of trouble, right? What a lot of steps to make something that already exists, but like in a different form. Sometimes I feel like as rug hookers, we're always trying to go so far out the box that we're doing sort of square peg, circle hole work. And this is not one of those times. I think that's a really, really smart project and cozy too, in the spirit of rug hooking, right? That makes perfect sense to me. The next project I'm going to hold off on showing you. It's very unusual. It's a clothing accessory. It's a style of collar. And very, very smart, very cool, very different. That's another area wherein rug hookers are always trying to come up with something that can be hooked, that is, sorry, I'm showing you my Halloween wall back there, that can be hooked, but that is still stylish, right? You want to show sometimes that you're a rug hooker and you want to show something pretty that you made, but you don't want to look like a fool, right? And sometimes it's a very blurry line. There's a lovely project in here for a collar style item that, again, lots of instructions showing you how to make it, but it is a lovely clothing accessory and it is very unique in its shape. So I don't want to show it here because it's a real sort of signature look, and it's in the book, so you know that it's there. I'm going to show you the next big rug project. Just catching up on your comments. Alrighty, let me show you the next rug project. Let's see, hang on. There we go. So this is called Seafaring Ship Floor Rug. Floor rug, sorry. Seafaring Ship Floor Rug. Oh, God. I'll tell you, sorry, I got to take a detour to say I did something so stupid today. I know I'm not looking at my toenails. I'm not biting my toenails, but I am looking at my leg. I was moving all the I was moving all the bins and stuff into the church to teach, and I had them on the wheeling carts, with like the tiers, they're metal, and the cart bumped on a like brick, and it fell over, and I fell onto it, and I banged my leg so hard. I said, I was outside of the church. I said a lot of stuff, and man, it hurts so bad. I have the biggest bruise and welt right on the front of my shin, right on the bone. And it makes me nervous because it's like, how sometimes you hear stories, not to be negative and creepy on a Friday night while we're having cocktails, but like my mother has told me stories about like blood clots, like she got a blood clot. I mean, they can be very dangerous. Thinking, what's the difference between falling on a food cart and getting a really bad bruise and bump immediately, and getting a blood clot? Like, how would you know? Does anybody know the answer to that? Because, man, this thing hurts while I'm just sitting still. Like, what an idiot. I wonder if anybody saw it. That's the question, right? So this next rug has an extra Canadian flavor to it, doesn't it? Of course, the most famous Garrett Blue Nose rug of all time is the Blue Nose schooner, right? It's the boat, it's the schooner that appears on Canadian coinage, as far as I know. Um, Boats in Canada go together like rema lema lema ding da bop, and this is as good of an example as any. In fact, this is such a fantastic contemporary take on a classic boat motif. I'm loving this design. And she prefaces this chapter, as she prefaces all the chapters, she writes here, because I've spent my entire life in a maritime province and now live in a neighborhood overlooking a harbor with tall ships, you might assume that I know a thing or two about the anatomy of a boat. I don't. But there is a lot of forgiveness in folk art, and despite the fact that I made up where all the sails and masts go, I still believe this ship to be seaworthy. It's a lucky schooner. I just know it. That is so sweet. It's stylized, right? It's stylized. It has a very mid-century modern look to it, this piece. It is crisp and clean. The background is like a bluish gray, but the water is a different color than the boat, but they are both blues, right? The darker coloring, oh, Goretti, it's my fault because I put the time wrong on the thing. Goretti, welcome. Happy Friday night, my love. The darker lines in the boat, that's the same color as the boat. So there's two colors of dark blue, one color of light blue, a light gold color, a dark gold color, white, and then of course the red for the checkerboard. Now, I love the design of the boat. To me, it doesn't matter if it's literal, right? I would never know myself. I can tell it's a boat, right? I'm pretty sure we can all tell it's a boat. I love the shapiness of it. It's very stylized. It's very successful. I love there being like the moon and a star, right? Or at least two motifs in the sky, but in the sky I would guess a moon and a star. It's so whimsical. They're oversized. They're filling the space. It is the very definition. Okay, Melanie says blood clots are inside veins. Bruises are broken capillaries that are bleeding into tissue. It's unusual to have one cause the other. Okay. Okay. So what do you look for if you're worried? Oh, I'm being stupid. I know. I'm worried. I always worry about everything now that I'm getting older. Um, I'm gonna have to look that up. Melanie, thank you. I haven't done something quite that stupid for a while, and it was like, it was one of these. It hurt so much that it wasn't that funny for me at that moment. Maybe it'll be like, funny when the bruise goes down, but normally I like this kind of comedy, right? And if I do it, I feel perfectly entitled to laugh. It was spectacular. Like, I mean, that cart went down. I had 3 Tupperware containers of yarn. It's like every ball of yarn rolled out and went a different direction. It was like impossible, right? Like it was impossible. And I had my big container of hooks and scissors. Every single thing fell out. It was incredible. And then me falling onto the cart was just, yeah, that really hurt. I'm definitely going to feel that. was not a good way to start, but it still was an excellent day. I turned my frown upside down pretty successfully, I think. The other thing that I really love about this piece design-wise is the border. It's really, I don't think I've ever been brave enough to do sort of a broken border, because truly the background material is the same as the blue in the border. So there isn't a departure there. It is the same. I would be so worried that it wouldn't be a successful look. It's got a kind of a crenellated or sort of postage stamp border. It does look good, doesn't it? It really does. It's bold. Not every composition could handle this, but the fact of this being, number one, nautical, right? And that border, I think, kind of brings into mind like nautical flags, the language of flags on boats. It kind of brings that to mind. They do have a bit of a pennant feel, but it's just another example of how when Crystal puts borders on her rugs, it's never what you would expect. Always super simple, but super creative, and leaves you wondering, why haven't I seen this border before? It's almost like a dental mold, isn't it? You know what I mean? When you see that on architecturally speaking, a dental mold on a house, that's exactly what it looks like. Absolutely beautiful piece. And this chapter goes through, again, the making of it, the finishing of it, and how she finished this, tucking it under, right? This is not a whipped piece. Really unusual. Very well done. This next piece is another stunner. Super understated. This is called Framed Flowers Wall Hanging. And this is brilliant, right? This is why you should buy this book and support Crystal. This is brilliant. So can you see with this piece that she's actually punched it onto a stretched frame? And this is the back side, right? This is the working side. I believe this is the working side. Is this the working side? I think this is. In any case, this is a stretched frame exactly like the one she showed you how to do at the beginning of the book, right? In the technical introduction, she showed you how to do this. So is that a frame? No. Is that a mat board going around it? No. That is the backing fabric wrapped around the stretcher frame. How clever is that? She's just punched as far as she could, and then the remaining and exposed fabric is the border. It looks so fresh and crisp. I love how the yarn is not like bleached white, right? It's natural white. And it does have flow, right? Because it changes a little. It's naturally variegated yarn. It's not pure white. Lots of movement, lots of motion in this very simple piece with a very simple motif of a glass holding these three. What do you think these are? Violets or what do you think? Cornflower? No, not cornflowers. Maybe. Cheers, my dears. I'm just having a sip. Oh my gosh. You know what I love about this piece? The clever self finish on it, right? It finishes itself. That's the backing material. It's wrapped around the frame. Bada bada bing, you are done. You are not doing anything with the needle and thread. You are not mitering your corners. You are not whip stitching. You're done. And how beautiful and finished it looks. I know that I've seen this before, but not like this. I've seen people work on frames, but I haven't seen anybody leave the border like that. I think that is really, in its simplicity, it is absolutely beautiful and brilliant. I love the fact that this piece looks so antique. Doesn't it remind you of like an old embroidered textile that's super faded and a bit stained with age? Doesn't it? Just simple little embroidered motif on an antique textile, right? That's what it reminds me of. It's such a stunning piece. It really is. And she's showing you how to do this, of course, in the chapter. She's showing you things, very, very specific things that you would need to do to successfully make this technique work. But man, what a great project. Bang, right up on the wall. And such a simple still life, right? Such simple lines. Part of the personality of this piece really I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. Part of the personality of this piece really is the background, isn't it? Now, this is featured at an angle. When I say you don't get directional hooking with yarn, that's not completely true, is it? Right? This is quite heavyweight yarn. This isn't sock yarn. This is a heavier weight. Is this maybe 3-ply again? Let me see. It's bulky weight. You do get something of a direction, but the fact of it being slightly it changes color a little bit. Wouldn't a clot become hot to the touch? I wonder. It's not right now. I'm touching it. I'm touching it. How gross am I? I do worry about this because I worry about crazy things that happen that are flukes, right? Think about what just happened to, may he rest in peace, Gene Hackman, right? And his wife, may she rest in peace. The things that can happen when you're just not paying attention, right? Like it's just like the things that can come at you that are fluke things, and then people, when someone gets sick or has some kind of fatal problem that could have been avoided, what does everyone say? Everyone says, "Oh, it must have been that person's time." Danged if I want to go that way, right? Danged if I want to go the way that my elegy is like, oh, everybody's got to go sometime. Must have been her time. I'd rather not, right? I'd rather avoid it if I could. Try to keep my just stay alert, right? To stay alert to everything. Your leg would be hot, I think. Thank you, Gail. And I'm very silly. I'm very silly. It was the first thing I thought when when I fell. Anyway, this piece is just very, very charming and very simple. And is it hard to come up with a piece that is both charming and simple? Of course it is. That's why this book is so good. It's very hard to come up with a piece that is simple and charming, that has a lot of character. This is another project that is signature, Crystal. And just so you know, I was taking these pictures when I got home at night. It was on the later side. This so my colors are not good, right? I did not have the benefit of like nice sunlight. The background of this pillow is the softest rose, like a nice soft petal rose. It's pink. It's not white, just so you know. And the green is like an olivey green, like a bronzy olive green. Really, really pretty. So this is signature Crystal in my mind. Mirrored tulips pillow. Perfect, simple, perfect, little bit of a folk art feel, little bit of a pen Dutch feel, very silhouette driven. It's all about simplicity. It's all about colors. I'm just reading the comment. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. That helps a lot because I do want to sleep tonight, that's for sure. So this piece you probably have noticed, this is 18 by 18. I think we realize that's centimeters. This piece is a pillow. So she's giving you some notes to completing this project, bearing in mind that you will turn this into a pillow. And same thing, follow-up pages revolve. And this is a stitched book, I'm noticing. This is not a glued book. This is a stitched book. That's a nice quality book. It really is a beautiful quality. She shows you how to finish it off in a way that you can use this as a pillow with an envelope pillow backing. So I know a lot of you out there are always thinking about, again, if you are a person who you love the tulips, Mom, huh? Those Dutch tulips, they look like they're doing a happy dance. They do look like they're doing a happy dance. Yeah, I mean, just the placement of the leaves. It's so Crystal. The little tulips look like a comb, more like a comb than a flower. Soft, right? Yeah, it's just her style, right? It's really, I love, and I was so happy to know that she was working on a book because, and I say this all the time, and I know you all are so nice and you go, oh, that's not true. I don't have this kind of style. Like I just don't have this. I do a lot of different things, and yes, I use a lot of bright colors and things, but I don't have this kind of style. It's really hard, and it's like a one in a million to be the kind of artist that you have a really recognizable style. Like it can't be anybody but you. That is such a gift. And Crystal definitely has that gift. So it's nice to see this book because not only is she really leaning into her natural style, but she is doing projects that are quite diverse, right? In their use, in their color palettes, in their subjects, right? It is she's really stretching in this book to lots of different kinds of projects. Um, it's very very good. Highly recommend. And let me bring you to the next piece. Wait a minute. Let's close this down here. And doodle dee doo. Look at this. Playmates floor mat. This piece is 29 and a half by 36. Just amazing. It's just amazing. I just love this. I mean, talk about playful. So there's so much going on in this rug that make it so compelling. The color palette is very controlled. It's lots of gold, honey mustard, and orange, right? And the background is a sort of minty green, right? It's a light green. It's not a Nile green. It's not a blue green, right? It's like it's not a lemon green either. It's what I would call pistachio. It's just a hint of green. The color in the photo is pretty close to your monitor, I think. I love the limited color palette. I love the storytelling quality of the little girl with the lion. I love the playful nature, right, of it being like a storybook lion. Not the tulips reminded you of Matisse. Definitely, Karen. They definitely have that feel. You know, anything that is so silhouette driven, I think for us at this point in time, anything that is made of composition that is made of a sort of collage, a collage composition made of silhouettes. I think at this moment in time, we as people who look at art and talk about art are always going to think that reminds me of Matisse. But just imagine, it's not that I don't think Matisse is eternally great, but just imagine 100 years from now, we might still be talking about Matisse, but it might be that in the next 100 years, artists who are more contemporary or just gone by or about to come up, that they kind of eclipse the art scene. And it might be, stranger things have happened, that we are talking more about artists who maybe whose work has already emerged that we don't talk about right now because it's not the right time for them yet. This is what happens to artists, isn't it? It might be that in 20 years we're talking about an artist whose work is out now, right? That we haven't really noticed. It's just the nature of art, isn't it? The whole point, the job of an artist is to push us, right? Is to prod us and bring us to the next place. And it's like they're an creative guide, and they bring us to like signposts to the next place. And we're not always ready to go, and so we sometimes ignore the message and the work. And 20 years later, typically we look at it and say, wow, right? Wow, how do we not notice this? It's just the way that it is, right? It's not a symptom of now. It's not a symptom of us being, more stupid than past generations. It's just the kind of timeline for art. And it does make me wonder whether years from now we'll see stuff, compositions like these that are very like stencil or silhouette driven, and whether we will at all say, gosh, that reminds me of a Matisse. Isn't that a strange idea? It's absolutely true, though. History proves that it's absolutely true. Now, the thing about this storytelling that I like so much is the fact of the lion reminding me of a children's drawing. Like it makes me wonder whether this is from one of Vera's drawings. Let's see what Crystal had to say. She said, "Walking a lion by leash probably isn't the most sensible idea. Look at those claws. But I trust this young lady knows what she's doing. This design would be lovely in a variety of colors, so feel free to personalize the background and the figure to represent the adventurous spirit in your life." And it is adventurous. It is an adventurous idea, but in all practicality, this doesn't look like a very dangerous lion, does it? Claws and all. It really looks like a lion who's jumped out of a children's drawing. Very, very sweet. Now, going along with that conversation of crystals, if you were going to do this piece in different colors, what colors would you do? Does anybody know? While I leave you to talk on that or to answer me in the thread, I have to add that there is something so sweet about both the posture of the lion and of the girl, right? There's a relationship between the two. It's companionable, it's fun, it's playful. This is not a captive lion. I would, if even in a literal sense, I would believe this lion could make a break for it if he wanted to. It looks like they're having a very good game together, but she's kind of skipping or dancing along, and there is something so lighthearted and fun about it. Her hair as well, the little clip in her hair. It's just so unusual. So many small details that are so charming. The sort of widow's peak on the lion, I like that too. His soft little sweet face. It's almost a human face. Karen says the girl with the lion might be a Maurice Sendak illustration. That's a great thought. Maurice Sendak is the author of Where the Wild Things Are. So you can picture that kind of art, those kinds of fantasy characters that are part monster but part recognizable animals, like zoo animals. Yeah, it does have that feel. Certainly the face and the mane has that feel. Sendak often shows us animals and characters that are upright, while this one is not. But certainly the style is there. I especially love the border. Again, right? Coming up with a border. It's not a conventional border. I always think of when I draw a border, do you do this too? I draw the lines. I bracket it off and I draw the lines and I think, what will I fill the border with? I did it today in class. I drew a border. You don't have to draw a border, right? You can populate the border without sectioning it off. And Crystal did that with the red squares, and she's doing it again here with what look like, Judy's calling it a regular dotted border, is so pleasing. It is. It's a little bit cobblestoney. It's maybe a little bit like a footprint. I don't know what a lion print looks like, probably like a cat print. But it does have a bit of an animal feel in brown. It strikes me as like an animal print a little bit. But it's a polka dot border. It's super charming. It's super playful. And I think the fact of the border being open relates to the subject because it is a lion with a leash, but it doesn't come off as being like inhumane. And the fact of the border being open, I think further contributes to that feeling of freedom, right? This is not a locked up composition. It's a very free and open composition. It is super charming and it is very different. Very different. Let me see. I think I might. Oh, Melanie says in response, if you were going to do this in a different color palette, Melanie says, I would do a marble cake background in creams and grays. The lion would be more golden with a brown mane. And ooh, what about the girl? Would you keep the girl as the same colors as the lion? The golden with brown? Interesting. So you would do, Melanie, a busier background. You would do a busier background, the marble cake, and you would use two different neutrals. Brown and gray are both neutrals. Brown is regarded as a neutral in art. Of course, it really depends. If you do a brown that's so far toward red that it looks like, dried wine or dried blood, then, speaking of blood, a lot of blood talk tonight. Sorry about that. Then we are moving you're moving away from neutral. But certainly this brown is a neutral, and her sleeves are a neutral brown. Very unusual color palette. What I'm noticing with these rugs, the one before it as well with the tulips had that soft pink background. This one has the soft green background. And it makes me think that's a very clever solution because even though Crystal's work is very graphic, she does not outline, right? Have you noticed that? Sometimes when we do compositions that are simpler lines, we tend to outline and make it really folky and graphic. She doesn't do that. She never does that. So that in itself is one of the major things that contribute to Crystal's look, right? The way her pieces have this signature look. If you want to have a little girl with her skin tone is pure white, like just untouched yarn, it's just the base color of the yarn, it is a clever thing to do the background still very light and bright, but in a slightly different color. It's only slightly different, but it easily reads. You have no problem seeing her face and her limbs. It easily reads even against a green that's that light. Interesting, isn't it? And this is the product of a lot of experience, color play, yeah, just trying things out. I think it's absolutely, I just love that piece. And I'm going to skip some more projects too. And oh boy, wait till you see some of these. A floral trio bag. Oh, you're going to want that. It's a very cute tote. Another another beautiful floor rug. Ooh, a chair. Okay, I'll come to you here. Hang on. A chair pad. I'm skipping over a lot of projects again because I want you to be very surprised when you get this book. And again, I did put the link to Crystal Ross's book, Punch Needle Rug Hooking Handbook Techniques and Playful Projects. I did put the link to this in the video for tonight. Chair pad. Chair pad is, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's very different. Oh boy. This is another beautiful rug. I'll save it. I'm going to show you one last project. Vintage carousel rug. You're going to love this one too. You're really going to love it. You're going to love the border. If you watch back on this particular episode, it is fun. There is another one in between. Spring Snake Bolster Pillow. I'll show you this from a distance. That's a clever project. It's like a snake bolster, right? Because bolsters are long, round pillows, like cylindrical pillows. They're very practical pillows to have because depending on whether you're putting it on the bed or on the couch or whatever, they are nice to lay on and to lean into, right? They're nice in your back, like they're like lumbar pillows. They're nice in the bed. They're super practical pillows. And she made the tongue like out of a tassel, like a wool tassel. Very cool. So there are quite a few projects in here that I'm skipping over. You can imagine that the bolster pillow has a pattern piece, right? Because it's a three-dimensional object. Very well explained again. And even making the tassel is very well explained, right? I'll just show you the tassel, right? Like right here, the orangey rust color. You know, just simple, keeping it simple, using a folded piece of paper to make a tassel. That's the kind of conversation I like to see in these kinds of books because what's the normal thing in my world to do if I want to make a tassel? Google tassel, look up a tassel maker, and then spend a stupid amount of money and order a tassel that doesn't come for 2 weeks. Why do that, right? So many tips in this book about not just rug making and punch needle and finishing things and sewing. There's lots of tips that will carry over into so many of your projects. This last project is very clever. And again, speaking to the subject of rug hookers feeling like, you know, I'd like to do something other than a rug, right? There's quite a few projects. There was the pretty doorstop, the bolster pillow. There were other pillows. There was the collar that I saved. I skipped over a bag that was very pretty and simple. There's lots of different kinds of projects in here. And this next one that we're going to look at is called Changing Weather Clutch. This is a great idea. It's almost like a portfolio size. This is 14 by 11. Crystal writes, I'm always on the lookout for ways to organize my craft supplies. This soft and floppy clutch is the perfect place for corralling punch needles, rug hooks, patterns, knitting needles, or any manner of lovely things that are special to you. It keeps them together and highlights the joy they bring, because once you open the clutch, sunny days appear. If you'd like to take this project further, line the interior in a matching fabric before moving on to folding and whip stitching. So one of her tips, there's other tips in this chapter. To see what she means, it's called changing weather because when it's closed, there's like clouds over the little row of houses. And when you open the clutch, the sun comes out. So let me show you. When you open the clutch, right, the sun comes out. So she's saying you open the clutch up and then it's happy times again. The sun comes up, happy times, and all your stuff is inside there. It is a beautiful, simple project, and it is a great idea. This gives you an idea of the perspective. This picture here. It's a great idea. It is like a small portfolio size. What a beautiful thing to be able to take under your arm with your tools in it, with your pattern in it. I mean, it's got everything but the frame in there, right? If you've got the frame in one hand and this bag in the other, you can have materials in there. Very, very smart. She's also showing you how to whip the edges. It's a really brilliant project. And that simple little device of changing weather, of the clouds giving way to the sun, I think it's just brilliant. I think she's just brilliant. Um, yeah, she's such a special person in my mind, um, because she has these. Oh, here she is. Here she is. She has these such pure. She's so beautiful, isn't she? Gosh, she's beautiful. Just these pure sort of ideals, right? She's got these ideas, but she's more about ideals, right? She's a person with a lot of integrity. She's got a lot of family spirit and historical sort of reverence for the historical history of this craft. But she really blends all of these sort of underground features to her work with these really contemporary designs. And it is so unique. If I had to ever do a design light class talking about Crystal Ross's work, I honestly wouldn't be able to do it because it's too magic. It's too hard. It's too hard to put my finger on how she comes up with these simple designs and manages to be so successful. Just so you know, besides this book, she does have a website, right? If you look her up, she's on Instagram often, but she often has rugs for sale if she's got anything in stock. Now, at this moment, I'm guessing she was working on this book like an animal, and probably wasn't working on rugs to sell. It is always a killer. And I know this from experience. It is always a killer to work on a book project with a publisher who is not yourself, because it's so much more work than you think. And it takes way more time than you think. So you are that much more grateful when people buy the book and or go on your website and buy some stuff to help you out, because it takes a huge chunk out of your time, out of your life, but also out of your bank. When you write a book, you get forwarded money, but it's not like a huge amount. You are out money big time for it. My eye just started twitching thinking about it. This is why I self-publish now, right? But it's scary. It's scary when that happens, because you don't know how long they're going to keep you in this limbo of going back and forth, jerking you around with, we like this chapter, but can you fix this? No, can you fix this again? No, we changed our minds. Can you fix it? Change it back. And it's all, time is money, right? So it's worth looking at her site, see if any rugs are for sale. But again, I wouldn't be surprised. She has been wildly busy with this for a really long time. Beautiful projects. I'm just looking at them one more time. Beautiful projects. I love this book. Oh, Rita, you said something. Cool Snake reminds me of Seaside Heights Boardwalk and playing games to win the 6-foot snakes. Oh my God, right? I can picture those. I had one. I need to make another. Thanks for the inspiration, Crystal. Absolutely. It is a funny thing. Yeah, and it's funny that it's a snake. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so her style. It's a benign snake in the same style as the leashed lion, right? Just really playful and really fun. And again, bright and colorful, but not juvenile. Sometimes, I mean, I see rugs in rug hooking that pop up that I think, yeah, that would be really nice for a children's room. I don't think that these would be really nice for a children's room, but they'd be really nice for my room. So there is something about Crystal, those dualities, right, that cross over. It's playful, but it's not like, they're not babyish. And they're colorful, but they're not gauche. And they're not primary, right? There's primary colors, but they don't strike you as primary. Yeah, they're very unusual. They're very unusual. And lots of imagery in here, right? And that's a little bit of a sneak preview of some of the other projects are in there. But I can't recommend this highly enough. Not only is she a great teacher, a great designer, an innovative hooker, but she's part of rug hooking history. And she's a great artist. She's a great person, right? And that goes a long way. She's a great person. And these designs are over the top. They are gorgeous. They are gorgeous. Yeah, and you know, Crystal's work is one of a kind. When she makes a rug, she sells the rug, that rug's gone, right? I've had my heart broken a couple times with her rugs. By the time I saw them, they were sold. And I thought, I can't live without this rug sold. So she's not like a repeat pattern maker. She doesn't repeat rug designs. Um, I did ask her today if she would write something for Magpie Times, the next issue, about this book coming out, and she said she would do that. So, because not everybody watches this show, of course. I know more people will watch it by next week, next month, or whatever. But certainly there's a lot of people who don't know that this book is out, and we don't see enough rug hooking and punch needle books to miss it. And we don't see enough great rug hooking punch needle books, right? I don't review all of them, if you've noticed. And it's nothing to do with whether the person is a friend of mine or not, because I have reviewed, here it comes, ready? I have reviewed books, giving stunning, uh, duly stunning reviews of books from people who I can't stand personally. But if the book is great and the work is great, I'm going to say that it's great. Crystal is just great on every level. She's a fantastic person, and this book is, I'm going to put myself out there and say, whether you're a beginner or you've been hooking for years, this is a great book to have. It's an essential book, and it's a great inspiration book. So. Judy says, congratulations, Crystal. Well done. Oh, Jessica, good to see you. You just joined and you'll watch later to catch up. No. You finished Fairy Tale Rose already? Fairy Tale Queen? Oh my God, I can't wait to see it. Holy mac, but you need another one? I can't wait to see it. I have another one that's really difficult. There's one there. I shouldn't have framed it like that, should I have? I have one that hasn't been taken, I think. We're down to one. And it has to be done because it's a really important one. It's the Madame Butterfly Rose, I'll just say that. It has like an Asian theme, and she's Madame Butterfly of the Italian opera is holding out one of these umbrellas, and it's got the Madame Butterfly rose patterned all over it. You know those paper umbrellas or silk umbrellas, how they're patterned with flowers, but like asymmetrical. You know how the flowers are like clustered. That's what the pattern is like, but the pattern has text on it. And the text can, with all my patterns, not just for the Rose book or the Mystic Carpet, the next Halloween book, for all of my projects, if you ever take on my projects and they have text, you do not have to hook the text. You never have to hook the text. You can eliminate the font. You can change the font. You can adapt my patterns however you want, every time, for every person, right? I'm speaking to everyone. Thanks, Rita. It is. I love the pattern, but I can see it's a tricky one for sure. Dave says, hi, I don't know. I didn't know you were running cocktail night. Oh, I'm so sorry, Dave. I was out all day. I should have gotten on this morning to put the thing up. I'm so sorry I didn't. I was in such a tailspin getting out the door. I was really worried about the time. I'm so sorry. But it'll be here for you for later. We were looking at your countrywoman up there. Crystal Ross, also Canadian, Punch Needle and Rug Hooking Handbook. It's absolutely beautiful and an essential book. And I love Crystal, and I love her work. So Stash Books is a division of CT Publishing. And if you're a quilter, you definitely know CT Publishing. And I'm sure you all know, if you are quilters, that Patchwork Place as a publishing house closed, was it last year, maybe the year before? That was a big hit to me because I just loved Patchwork Place. There was something, it might have been a bit of nostalgia, but there was just something about their line of books. When you're used to getting a specific publisher, there's just, you know what I mean? You see like the logo on the spine and you're like, gotta have it. Even if the book isn't exactly what you need. I tend to do that, be a completist when it comes to, or completionist, I don't know what the right word is, when it comes to craft books. But I had like all of the Patchwork Place stuff. I mean, it was like ridiculous. Books that I don't even think the projects were cute or pretty or whatever, but just because they were that brand. Yeah, it's funny how few craft publishers are out there right now, and I really think that CNT Publishing is like, yeah, it's right up there. Schiffer's right up there too, but they pulled back on their craft books. They're really, I mean, I spoke to them recently, and they said they're really not doing craft books right now. They're just not selling that well, and I bet it's because people are online on YouTube learning things that way. And in one way, on one hand, um, that can hurt the book market, right? But on the other hand, if those people are better off learning by watching, you can't fault them for that, right? You can't fault them for that. It is like it's a society. We're a society of consumers. I don't just mean typical sort of consumption of things. I mean because of, I think the younger generation, they much rather watch a 5-second video than spend $30 on a book. And obviously, the craft world can't go around as long as that's the case. So I am always thoughtful about that with my purchases. Even when I am not doing great with money myself, I always try to support new titles and new products that I think have value because, yeah, there's just too many throwaway watchers and crafters right now, and we're not among them. That's why I feel comfortable saying that. Rita says, now you tell me, text took me 2 weeks. Oh no, Rita, I'm so sorry, honey. I'm so sorry. No, you can always fudge and fool with my patterns, always. The only thing about the rose book that was important to me is that the roses be like the right color. And if you've already done it and it's not exactly the right color, don't worry about it. My mom's doing a watercolor painting of each of the roses. So we will have the right color. But with the rose book, and that is the next book that's coming out, with the rose book, it's basically the story of about 70 different roses. And the histories as I have them, right? Some of them, there's not a lot of history. They've been bred and they now exist. And there's not much backstory. Some of them are very old roses that go back hundreds of years. Some of them are new roses that were just developed like last year, literally, and everything in between. And it's really the story of, uh, oh, I'm so glad. I can't wait to see it. I'm in suspense. I know. I know you finished it, but I'm excited to see it whenever that may be. Um, yeah, this is a very different kind of book. And if you are working on something for the Rose book, just know that whether it's the Rose book or, it was the Halloween book or it's the next Halloween book, when you do something for me and it's in a book project, it will be featured. It's not going to be this big, right? It's not one of those. It's going to be featured. Everybody's work gets featured and gets celebrated, always, even if someone else has done the same rose. But this was an exciting project to work on because when I think of rose rugs, I think of Pearl McGowan and all of those early rug compositions. And I thought, can we ever think about doing different roses in ways that aren't that way? And that was a big challenge for me. And I did do some of them. Some of the patterns are quite traditional, and I'm happy that they are because there should be something for everyone in there. None of them are totally traditional, but some of them are. You'll be like, oh, that could be a 1950s pattern for sure. But I just loved the opportunity with the rose book to really play on the names of the roses because they really are so creative and interesting. So be thinking about that if you're working on that. I know a lot of you are working on Wish You Were Here, the holiday postcards, and those will go into an article for the next Magpie Times, due date May 1st. Due date also for the rose book May 1st. What was I going to say? Oh, and a lot of us, including some of my buddies today, live in person teaching at the church, a lot of buddies are working on Caswell carpet blocks. And I did tell the story of the Caswell carpet, and what I had two. One of them was like the peahen, right? Like the bird, like the one with the weird bird, not the two birds that are crossed, but just the one bird. And the cat. Those were two that I offered, and there were several takers on both of those. So I'm wondering if they'll finish those up, love them, and want to join us in displaying the Caswell carpet. I wrote again to those people, so hopefully they write back. Hopefully later this year or early next year, we can celebrate the Caswell carpet together. We always have projects going on because not everybody jumps on every one. Some of you do. You are, Jessica, you are like a fireball. Of course, if you have ideas for more projects, if you have, or challenges, if you have ideas for, um, what was I going to say? I'm really getting tired now. If you have ideas for the next Magpie Times, whether it's the summer issue, Wish You Were Here holiday postcards, or the fall issue, barn quilts, let's get together, Hoosick Falls girls, right? Let's get together and do, seriously, let's plan maybe a little road trip, get some good photos of those barn quilts. And for everybody who lives in areas where there's barn quilts, be thinking about that over the summer, getting some good photos so we can do a nice layout on actual barn quilts, right? And the designs. I can't wait. We have so much to look forward to. But right now, I am really looking forward to bed. It is, I thought I'd sit and hook for a while. I don't think so. But I will love being unconscious in my bed in 30 seconds. I will see you all on Monday. I got the most recent issue of the McGowan magazine, so we'll look at this together on Monday, and then we'll go back to the conversation on dying. The McGowan Guild newsletter. I got volume number 54, issue 1. So we will look at this together. We might do this and then return to our conversation on dyes and dye colors. But last time we looked at the McGowan issue, we really enjoyed it. So I know we'll enjoy it again. I'm just looking at it for the first time. There's some beautiful work in here. Oh my God. Okay, get ready for preview. You ready? Let me attribute this so nobody said I don't get a nasty gram. We'll look at this in detail. Helen Mar Parkin. This will be one of the images that we look at on Monday from an actual photograph. Wow, right? Isn't that something? Right? That's your spoiler. That'll be the thumbnail for Monday. Hey, I will see you then. Oh my God, I forgot to tell you. Just in case you're interested. Oh, I wrote it in the Facebook group. If you're local, New York, I am going to see in I forget what town it is. The place, I think it's called Wassaic, New York State, Wassaic, Wassaic Falls, the Wassaic Project, the Wassaic Falls Project. It's an artist. It's a show that's about to close. It's like many different mediums, and one of the artists in it is the rug hooker who I talk about often, and I really love her work. Mary Tooley Parker. She will be there speaking because it is the close of the show. So it's a little bit of a ride for me, but I want to drive up there tomorrow. Look at the Wassaic Project. Because if you're near there, you might want to pop by. It's a lot of beautiful work, not just her work, but again, there's a lot of different mediums there. It's very sort of avant-garde. It's a kind of a hip event. But her rugs are absolutely beautiful, and I want to see them in person, and I would like to hear her speak. So I don't know what I can record while I'm there. I'm sure I can't record a video, but I'll bring back as much content as I can for you. I'm going to do that during the day tomorrow because I think it's worth the road trip, right? I think she's such a special person, and she's doing so much for the gallery side of our craft. So I'll be doing that tomorrow. Yeah, and I will be back with you on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone. It was great catching up, spending some time with you, and remember to check out for yourself my friend Crystal Ross's truly amazing book, Punch Needle Rug Hooking Handbook, Techniques and Playful Projects. I'll see you on Monday, everybody.